this week's Success Story Friday. Sarah, I really appreciate you joining us. This week we feature Sarah Paul, who was our assistant superintendent for White Bear Lake area. She's been her whole career has been with education, so she's an educator through and through. So thank you very much for coming. This has been one of my biggest success during distance learning has been this event. Kids have really enjoyed hearing everybody's different stories, so thank you for that. So my first question for you is, how did you become an educator? What made you decide to go into education?
So thank you. First of all, it's just very an honor to be here because this is the heart of the work. So just the fact that students are hearing people's stories is very honoring and great to be part of. I began my teaching career about 25 years ago. I was an athlete through high school and college, and so I was very into just extracurricular activities. And so when I moved into teaching, I was coaching as well. And I think I was trying to decide between elementary and secondary education. And the success I had and the interactions that I had as a coach when I was coaching before I was hired as a teacher really made a big impact on me. Coaching is just really where you come alongside someone and you really try to help elevate their thinking and their skills so that they can reach their goals. And I think that my coaching experience is what attracted me to teach at the secondary level and to work alongside students. And that really reflects a lot of the philosophy I had as a teacher. Students really being active partners in the learning experience. And so a couple of teachers that are at South Campus, I actually had them in class. And so it's exciting now to see them teaching and being successful in their careers. But it's definitely was that ability to come alongside and really partner with students to make great things happen that really attracted me into the profession and is a big part of how I do things still in my career.
It's really interesting how closely related coaching and teaching are. Mm-hmm. It's just what you're teaching, because coaching is teaching, skills and more of that physical stuff, how to do, diving, how to do your tuck.
Yeah.
Soccer, how to properly pass or hook the ball. I still don't get how soccer players curve soccer balls when they throw it. I understand it for baseball, but soccer over my head.
Right.
But it's really neat how you can take those and you can use your skills in the classroom out on the field. You can also use your skills from a coach in the classroom and how directly those are related to each other. I think a lot of great coaches are also great teachers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So since you taught in the classroom for many years, now I learned that you were also a coach. What did you coach? Diving?
Yeah, well, I was a diver at the University of Minnesota, and so naturally I started with coaching diving. And so I was swimming and diving coach for, I taught in the North St. Paul School District, so I was the coach for Tartan and North St. Paul high schools. And then I also coached track. And so those were the two. I coached boys and girls swimming and diving, and then I coached track. And so I was coaching all year long, and it was just such a great way to get to know students on a more personal level. And then when they came into the classroom, I really believe that when you're teaching, you're learning, and when you're learning, you're teaching. And so having a foundation of a really strong relationship with students really helped me to not let perfect be the enemy of progress, and just know that I did not have to know everything, and that good questions really were the foundation of great learning, and that I could just have the resources around me to bring back those answers for us to really learn together. So that's, I was so blessed to have just amazing students, really that put up with a new teacher and were willing to always partner with me through the years. That was just such a joyful time in my profession.
It is always interesting, though, where you can find that little piece of connection with your students, because it means a lot different. Like, as you start, learning about your students more, and you find those little pieces where you have the common ground, because even out in industry and, just connections with people as you meet, when you find those little common grounds, it's instant, like that connection. They're willing to help you. They're willing to make that bond with you. I've lived across the country. My automotive career has luckily taken me all across the country, from Minnesota all the way down to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing just being Minnesotan. You go to another state and people find out you're from Minnesota, and now all of a sudden you're best friends and you hang out. And when I went to school in Chicago, like all the guys I hung out with were from Minnesota because we had that connection. So
Right.
it's really great, as an educator, as a coach, when you find those connections, because it helps you make relationships that, helps you with the learning part of the school way better.
Yeah.
Through your career, you've, met a lot of students, you've coached a lot of students, you've taught a lot of students. What are some key attributes you've noticed in students that have gone on and been successful, or things that students have done in the past that you noticed that have led them to be able to be the best they can be?
Oh, I really appreciate the question. And I guess I want to share a story because it really had a big impact on me early on in my career, which is why career and technical education has been a big part of how I look at opportunities for students. My overarching theme would be students cannot let other people's definition of success drive their definition of success. Way back, it was 25 years ago, literally my first year of teaching, and I was teaching economics. And as part of the class, we had people from the community coming in and talking about their professions. And we had somebody from the firefighters, sprinkler industry, indoor sprinklers, come in and speak. And he was just talking about the importance of being in a trade. And at that time, people looked at the trades as a less than opportunity. And he was sharing that if you go into a trade right out of high school and you become the apprenticeship program, this is what it would actually bring to you in your quality of life in terms of your income and your work schedule and all those things. And I had one student, he had just turned 18, and he went and he signed up. And I've been very fortunate to keep in touch with my students. Whenever they have a reunion, they tend to get a hold of me. And he is one of the most successful people in the eyes of his classmates and in his own definition of success, because he found something that touched on his passion and he went for it. And especially at that time, it was against anyone else's definition of what success was. But he just saw something that really resonated with him in terms of how he could see his life coming together. And so by the 5-year reunion, here he is making a really good income. And some of his other friends had gone to college for 4 years. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They got like a sociology major, something that didn't really mean anything to them, but they got what they thought success was, which was a 4-year degree. And they were working as a security guard at the Mall of America and feeling really unfulfilled. So I think it's just really, really important to really take ownership of your learning, and students that just really want to figure themselves out and just look at opportunities to say, you know what, I tried this class, I learned something. I don't see that as my profession, but I've picked up a skill that now I have that in my toolkit in terms of if I took an automotive class and I didn't think that that was something that really was my passion, at least now when I go and get my car fixed, I kind of know what it is that I'm asking them to do, or I can change the oil in my own car, and that's super empowering. My husband would be the first person to tell you he absolutely knows nothing about cars, mechanics. And so we both are always feeling at the will of, I hope this person's ethical, because I have no idea what we're actually doing on this car. So, but I think success that I've seen in students through the years, it really hasn't about what they chose to do. It's about why they chose to do it. And they just had a commitment to better understanding themselves and looking at each opportunity as a way to better understand who they were and what brings them joy.
To touch on what you said, first I want to start by thanking you for being an advocate for the trades. Many of my students maybe haven't really met you, but Sarah has worked a lot behind the scenes with automotive, engineering, all the trades at our district to help ensure that every student that, like the one you talked about that went to their apprenticeship, has that opportunity. So I really thank you for being an advocate for the trades, because I'm right with you where I believe that the trades have a great spot for our students. It has, a huge meaning and can lead to a very successful and rewarding life. So I really thank you for that. Now I lost my train of thought. You're talking. I'm sorry, my brain. Sometimes your brain just goes.
I get it.
You have a train of thought and then it just goes. But I really appreciate how you touched on. That student found that the typical 4-year, because there has been that pendulum swing in education where it was industrial arts and then it swung to 4-year colleges, and now it's kind of swinging back. And White Bear does a really great job with our career pathways and educating our students about there's a lot more opportunity out there, and let's find the right path for you. If it's a 4-year degree, great, let's get you to that 4-year degree. If it's a 2-year degree, great, let's get you there. If it's an apprenticeship, we'll help you get there too. So I really applaud what we have developed in White Bear to fit the individual students. There's not just one mold that fits all of our students. Especially in our area, we have a lot of students that are going maybe military to learn a trade, apprenticeship, trade school. So it's really interesting all the different routes our students are taking because of the opportunities we have set up, because of individuals like you taking a stand. So I appreciate that.
Well, I just want to say like 2 thoughts on that. First of all, thank you. It's just been very rewarding to be part of something that it's bigger than yourself. Obviously, in my position, having a lot of conversations about the compelling why behind the importance of it. But our students are so fortunate to live in a community that believes that we're better together. And our industry partners coming alongside and telling us what we need to be doing in the classroom or what we need to be doing when we expand opportunities for students that align with what they need in workforce moving forward, so that our students truly are graduating and they are in high demand from our employers, not only in the community, but in the broader region. So we would not be doing as great of a job as we're doing if we didn't have industry partners that were committed to coming alongside us. And as you said, it's a both and. There are opportunities right out of high school with a 2-year degree, with a 4-year degree, and we have to thinking about and instead of or. And there was for a long time in education, it was one or the other, and it was a pride thing. That we were pushing kids towards one solution that really wasn't connected to the outcomes that we want people to think about, which is, what does quality of life mean to you, and how are you going to figure out the path that's going to work best for you? And we want to show where all of the paths that we're creating are around livable income jobs right out of high school. We're not designing a system that just says, don't do anything after you graduate and just, roll the dice and good luck. It's really about helping make informed decisions about really good opportunities that are out there at each stage of your learning opportunities. So that whole better together, there is no way that one person makes this great of an opportunity happen in a community. You need really strong teachers in the classroom that can relate to students and relate to industry partners. And that is that's really at the heart, the value of why this work happens, is people that are working with our students at the school level and just really continuing to seek to understand the students and seek to understand the industry. Derek, you're a rare gift. We worked years to find you because
thank you.
When you have career and technical education opportunities, there's a lot of the things we want to give our students access to require people that have industry experience and teaching credentials. And it's very, very rare to find people because, as you mentioned before, and students may not know, but a lot of colleges quit offering these programs because for so long we were so focused on 4-year degrees. So the broader system is like a cruise ship. It takes a long time to turn the cruise ship. And so when these programs don't exist across multiple colleges, there's so few that are graduating from college with a teaching credential, getting a teaching credential, and having industry experience. So you are a big reason why people are going to see, not only in the past year, but in the upcoming years, a huge acceleration of our automotive program. Huge acceleration.
It's an exciting time. There's a lot of great things happening in the background, and a lot of people stepping up to help. I've been fortunate. You've stepped up. A lot of our board members stepped up. Our local industry has stepped up. So, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that our students don't get to see, doing a lot of work on their behalf to make sure they get a quality education.
I do want to call out someone that I guarantee you will never have a conversation with this person without him saying "Go Bears" in the conversation. And he has been one of the true champions of expanding opportunities and really being mindful of telling the story of career and technical education. And his name is Don Mullen. He is the chair of our school board. And we are so fortunate. And not only that, we now have multiple members of our school board that really speak eloquently to and passionately about career and technical education. And but I want to specifically call his name out because I really think that when we have someone that Chair Mullen and I started the same year. He came on the school board, I came into my role. And I think when I look back at the journey, and it just takes multiple people in their roles to really see value and make a commitment to this work. And for 6 years, he has been daily making that commitment and making that commitment by saying "Go Bears." And he brings White Bear into so many conversations that students feel the benefit of, but they don't know where that benefit came from. So I just wanted to make sure to thank him as part of the work that we've been doing, and many others, but he's a symbol of the work that a lot of people are doing.
After our last advisory meeting, or the state of the shop meeting, I bragged to my other teacher friends that have done advisory, and I said I had 3 school board members and an assistant superintendent, and they wouldn't believe me. I'm like, no, really, I had that, that support, and they couldn't believe it. So the trades are alive and well in White Bear, and there's a lot of people at the administration and school board level fighting for our students. So it's great to see that. So that brings me into my next part of your career as you moved up into administration roles. What made you decide to change from a classroom to administration?
Well, I don't use this word lightly, but I literally grieved when I left the classroom. I loved my job, and I asked myself many times, what am I doing? Students are what give me, at the end of the day, just the joy that I have. But I was doing a project with our local Rotary, and I won an award. And so with the money that I received from that award, I decided to go back and pursue further education. And that is what cracked the door open to looking at what might be next for me and having a broader sphere of influence in terms of changing a system. And so that's what led me to stepping into administration. I had a really unique journey because that project that I did with the Rotary, we were bringing in convicted felons that were in jail because they had made unethical decisions because they felt like something was owed to them because of how hard they worked or how much they were giving to their company, and made unethical decisions that led to illegal decisions, and they were in jail. And actually, Denny Hecker, who was in the automotive industry, some of the employees that were with him that were convicted and going to jail, they actually spoke in our classrooms.
Wow.
Or they literally, one of them the day before he went to jail, and he was going to be in jail for a minimum of 5 years. So And then at the same time, we had our local business leaders that would come in and say, temptation is always part of the job, but you have to, when that door of temptation cracks open, you have to shut it. And being an ethical leader, an ethical person is part of anything you're going to do professionally in your life. And we had students that shared that in the classroom discussions that they were working at Best Buy, and there was temptations of how money was counted in things all the time, that they could have profit shared and done profit sharing and taking some money for themselves because back the way that things were shipped, there were ways that they could take new TVs home because there were gaps in the processes, and how they had to just share at the end of the day who I am. I can't hide that from myself. And so that was a component of our class that was so hard to leave, that level of impact that I was having. But I was actually asked by several business leaders to start a nonprofit in the state of Minnesota. And so it was called Partnering for Youth. And I was leading this nonprofit with business leaders and superintendents from across the state. And so that's what drew me out of the classroom, was to create an opportunity that would bring that kind of experience to more students. And then I could not be out of the education system. So after 2 years of working on that, I re-entered as an assistant superintendent for Minneapolis Public Schools, and then served there for 3 years. And then I came to White Bear, and this is my 6th year here that I've been in this role.
That is an awesome journey. A lot of our female students that want to enter a trade are going to face some of the same battles that you did entering a male-dominant career. What advice would you have for these students that want to enter a career like that? You know, right now, automotive is really male-heavy. We actually listened to a female shop owner from Wisconsin, and she talked about, you know, her struggles and how people wouldn't take her serious. And actually in White Bear, we have a couple of the shops that are ran by, some of the dealerships are actually ran by females too. So there is some females, you know, in the automotive industry, but it's not a commonplace yet. What advice do you have for those students?
Well, I guess just speaking from my experience, there's this superhero narrative that people will share with you sometimes, oh, you're just so amazing, you just do everything. And like, for example, when I was teaching full-time, I was in school full-time, I was a graduate assistant because all my schooling was paid for, partly because of the award I won, and then I was also blessed, given a fellowship that everything was paid for. I was trying to be a great mom, and quite frankly, I was not a great wife. And so I really had to prioritize what I wanted wholly as my life and not progress too quickly in my career, even though sometimes when you're successful as a female in your field, people want you to accelerate a lot faster because you represent women and you have to do this because there's so few women. And so I think that there is just the things that you value in life, you have to keep that at the core, and your values have to drive your decisions. And we had always set this year, when all my kids are now graduated from high school. So this was the year that we had set aside, that would be the year that I would pursue being a superintendent. And so now I'm going to be moving on to be the superintendent in North Branch. But life is a set of chapters, and you don't want to rush any chapter in your life. And being a leader in a female leader, there's less than 12%, somewhere between 12 and 16% of all superintendents are female. So it's very, very few females are in a superintendent role. I'm very, very proud and honored to be one of the females that will be serving in a superintendent role. But I want to be successful, and I want to make sure that all that I've given up from the impact of being a teacher, I don't want to give that up for a role. I want to give it up for impact. And so for me, it's really been about not rushing and making sure that my values drive my decisions so that I can have the impact that I want to have. So that's the advice I would give. I think there's so much desire and support that will be there if there are young women that want to go into a career that is male dominated. You just have to be willing to ask. You have to be willing to have 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 people you trust that you can be vulnerable with, because that's who's going to make sure that you're supported to be successful and that you can lean on. And I've had really great mentors from within my profession. They've been male, they've been female. I have great mentors out of my industry of education. I've maintained my contacts from my corporate partners that I had worked with so that they could mentor me and give me a perspective from outside of my industry. So that, and then I still have students that I look to as mentors, because I feel like they give me the insights that I can't have because I'm no longer in that seat. And so I would just say, have a very broad perspective of what it means to have a mentor, and really find people you trust and lean on them. And don't forget that there are people there to help you.
It is true. The networking and people around you can really help make success. I want to touch on two things you talked about, because what you said works, great advice for everyone. You had to make moves that make sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
Through your careers, you're going to be offered, deals to maybe go here or go there. But if it doesn't make sense for you, an example for me was when I was in college. A couple of people told me, hey, if you go over Milwaukee area, there's a school looking to hire just a person just like you, and they would have paid all this money and all this stuff. And I had known I'd already moved away from Minnesota 5 times and moved back to Minnesota. I'm like, I'm not moving away again. I keep coming back to Minnesota. It wasn't a wise choice for me. So I liked how you touched on that. You need to make sure that each move makes sense for you and what your goals are. So that was a great point you made. And then the other thing you said about ask questions, and that reminds me of a quote my mom always told me is, it never hurts to ask. The worst they can say is no. And so I've always thought about that, people don't know the questions in your head until you ask them. I tell my students when we started distance learning, I'm like, especially since we don't see you in person, I don't know when you need help. People can't tell when you need help unless you reach out and say, hey, can you feed more input here? And that carries over to careers. In automotive, if you get a ticket and a repair that you don't know how to fix, or you're really confused on, you could sit there for 3 days staring at the problem and you're not going to get anywhere. Instead of going over to your mentor or somebody you trust and saying, hey, I'm really lost. Can you please point me in the right direction and get me started? So asking questions is a huge thing for success. I also like to tell my students that nobody was born with any of this knowledge. We all started knowing nothing. And it's like my students, well, you know everything about auto. Well, no, I don't know everything, but I've learned a lot along the way. But I started where you are. At one point in my life, I knew nothing. And so everybody has to realize we get to where we get by asking those questions.
Yes. I need to meet your mom. I like her advice.
My mom has a lot of wise things to say.
Yeah.
We on our last one, the last week I actually interviewed, his name's Nerdy. He's a local hip hop artist that was City Page's Artist of the Year last year. And we were talking about how older people have a lot of wise things to say, and we were trying to think about what our generation's words of wisdom would be, because we talked about like what our grandparents told us, and so we were trying to think of what would we tell the next generation.
Oh, how fun!
It's always interesting. You don't know where those lines are going to come from, but it's always interesting what you pick up through your life and what you keep in your head for times when you need it.
Yes.
If you could go back to your younger self, maybe high school age, and give yourself 3 pieces of advice, what would you tell yourself at a younger age?
I think I would tell myself that fear is a liar, that fear makes you think things that just aren't true. I think back to where I was going to go to college, and ultimately what drove that decision wasn't necessarily the opportunity, which I tend to talk about more, which was being an athlete at the University of Minnesota. I think what drove that decision was more fear of the unknown and not taking a time to understand the unknown and to name that I was experiencing these feelings of doubt and fear, and just that lies to you and that restricts you from opportunities, and that you just need to, as you've shared when you were reflecting on some of my comments. I mean, those are just to really seek the unknown with a sense of adventure. I'll go back to just saying something about my husband. I am so fortunate to be married to the most wonderful man for me. And he, even in this process of pursuing a superintendent role, he said, we're going to approach this with a spirit of wonder and adventure. We're just going to be open to thinking about what opportunities could mean, so that we don't take anything off the table before we've had a chance to really consider it. So I think that when I go back to when I was in high school, I think I missed out on some things, just because of I was probably seen as outgoing and maybe outgoing, but I was inside, I was very shy. And so I think I would have just had maybe taken time to have a little bit more confidence in myself. Right now, one of the things with this is cheesy, but I'm just going to share it. One of the things we like to do is hold up the victory, and just kind of have this moment where you're willing to stop and celebrate with yourself about little things. And so we do our VE victory. I just to be open to just don't take myself so seriously. I wouldn't have taken myself so seriously, and I would have lightened up and just been as nice to myself as I try to be to others. You're a person that you live with 24/7, so just be nice to yourself and cut yourself a little bit of slack sometimes, and especially when you're finding a passion, you're going to lean into it, and you're going to really want to dig deeper. And you're not going to be perfect. And perfect is the biggest enemy of progress. And so I just think that would be some of the things I would go back and make sure to tell myself. And I think that's one thing in parenting, that you try not to do too much, but you can't help it, where you try to make sure that you're sharing some of those life lessons that you've learned, and try to help them learn a little bit from your journey, so to speak.
And like you said, they can learn from your journey, but like you try to influence. Even with my students, I try to tell them about what I do, but a lot of stuff, you have to get out there and experience. You try to warn them, like a little kid. You tell them the burner's hot. Well, as a little kid, you're going to touch the burner. Okay, they were right, and that's a way of learning.
Yeah.
Adam actually has a question for you, and I'll read it off here. As a diesel student at 916, I feel that higher level education and experience in high school help a lot within helping choose a career path. What are your thoughts on 916 and other schools/career programs?
Well, thanks for the question, Adam. I would say it's both and. I mean, we have programs that we have through 916. We have programs that we have directly in classrooms within our school, and we have opportunities through summer internships that are directly with industry partners. We also have work that we do with Century College directly with them. I think it has to be a both and. I don't know. There's not much of a reason why we would leave opportunities off of the table that can help students figure out what it is that's going to make sense for them in their life. So I work closely with 916. We had a really great opportunity in the community to think about the future of transportation. And so the city and the Chamber of Commerce, we had brought students together three years ago now to an event at the Chamber of Commerce. It led to a discussion with community partners that talked about bringing an autonomous vehicle here for a demonstration site in White Bear. We brought 916 to the table because 916 has the ability to share the story of what opportunities there are for students in the area of transportation. We may have the best program in the state, which we will for automotive, and we still cannot meet the demand of what the industry needs for automotive careers. So we need to work in partnership because 916 has the ability to be a great thought partner and also help others see how to expand opportunities in this important industry in other districts, because White Bear will and is already emerging as a leader in this area, but we cannot meet the demand by ourselves. So as a system, you know, we as an education system of White Bear, we're working in a broader ecosystem, and our industry partners need us to be working in partnership in multiple ways, because the jobs that are opening and are continue to be in need, we can't fulfill that demand by ourselves. And so it's very, very important to work in partnership, and working with 916 and hearing about some of the niche ways that they are meeting the needs of students. Some of the things that you're learning, Adam, we need to continue to hear those so that we strategically design our opportunities to meet what's working.
I think you hit the nail on the head with about opportunities and meeting the needs. At White Bear, there's so many different opportunities, and like you said earlier, not having that fear and saying yes to those different opportunities. Like when Jenny Moore comes in the classroom and say, "We have these internships. Who wants to do it?" You know, at a young age, it's a great time to explore so many different opportunities and so many different areas. And White Bear does a great job of, we try to say yes to everything to get as much opportunities for our students out there. You know, the one day we had a student come and say, "I'd really like to sell cars at this dealership. What do you know about it?" And by the end of the day, we had an interview for that student at that dealership.
Wow.
And so, you know, it's the opportunities that have been set forward by the school district and all the individuals in the school that gives all of our students all these great opportunities that if they're interested in something, we can probably find somebody that we've partnered with that can get them more information and get them down that pathway because we have said yes to opportunity.
Adam, would you be willing to unmute and share a little bit about your experience that you've had so far?
What experience?
At 916.
Oh, at 916, it honestly feels like a college program pretty much. I feel like I've learned a lot more than I ever would have expected in high school with my chosen career path. And it's just nice to have a lot of hands-on experience within that program.
Because Adam, you're going off to school for Cummings this next year, right?
That kind of fell through with the whole virus, but
yeah.
I might be going to St. Paul College now for it. And it feels a lot better knowing that going into it, I'll have a certain basic understanding of most of the principles.
Great. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. And hats off to 916's role in giving you those opportunities. It's great to be able to acknowledge a partner in this work. They're one piece that fits together in the greater puzzle, and so we celebrate all of the pieces of success. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my last question I would have for you would be, you know, as an educator, you have won many awards, with one of the highest ones being NASDAQ National Teacher of the Year in 2001. So that's at a national level. So very congrats to you on that. What piece of advice do you have for our students to help them find success like you have?
Well, there's not any award that I've ever gotten that I accomplished by doing it by myself. It wasn't, you know, you win awards and they're great things because they bring credibility to the programs that you're working on. Oftentimes it brings more opportunities for a business leader to come alongside saying they want to be part of it, or a grant of somebody saying, boy, we really would like to help you dig deeper in this area. And so awards really aren't, for me, awards aren't about me. It's about, it's a way to continue to tell our story and to continue to create those opportunities. I guess I would just remember to be, it's great to be acknowledged and never shy away from being acknowledged, because I still have work to do in that area to just say thank you. But when you are acknowledged, there is far more being acknowledged than just yourself. So don't be afraid to take a moment to say thank you and receive those opportunities when they come along, because the ripple effect of benefit is far beyond you as an individual. And so as people, we try to balance that. When we work in collaboration, we have to have a mindset of humility, because you can't work in collaboration if you're not willing to listen to the stories of others so that it makes you, helps you make better decisions. So you have to hold that humility in one hand. And then you also have to hold that innovator's mindset of having the confidence to try new things and be entrepreneurial and take risks. And that requires you as a leader to allow those around you to do that, and to do that yourself, and to continue modeling taking those risks. So, and that's what, you know, that entrepreneurial mindset is what elevates you above others and attracts people to help you create something new, which we always have to be doing in terms of life is all about change and getting ready for new changes and managing through changes. And so you have to have that innovative mindset to constantly be willing to try new things and listen to other perspectives and realize that what you try might not work, and you might have to iterate and make a shift and try it again. And so if you're holding that innovation mindset and that humility and the importance that you have to always be listening to those that you're trying to serve, what is the impact that this is having, so that you don't get caught up in loving the intent of what you're doing. You have to love the impact of what you're doing. And sometimes our intent is not the same as our impact. And we have to always be open to closing that gap, so that we're ultimately serving those in the way that we want them to experience it.
And that is some more great words of wisdom. I really appreciate that. And I really like how you said about innovation comes from taking risks. Without taking those risks, you don't grow. If you stay where you're comfortable all the time in that little bubble, you don't expand yourself. You don't give yourself the opportunity to grow. You know, think about like a hermit crab. They start in a small shell, and when they get too big, they move to a bigger shell so they have more room to grow. Or a goldfish will only grow as big as the bowl that they're in. So without taking those risks, you won't grow like you spoke about. So that is a great piece of information. So thank you. I really appreciate your time and you participating in this on very short notice. I really thank you for doing this. I'd like to also congratulate you on your new position. It's well earned. You're going to do really well there. We're sad to see you, go. You've been a huge advocate, for automotive and all the trades. I really appreciate that. And congratulations to you, and thank you for participating in this.
Well, thank you. I will continue to have orange in my blood, and as I serve on the federal policy committee for CTE, so I still will have a way to help advocate for CTE and White Bear. So I guess the most important way to say goodbye is to say, "Go Bears!"
Go Bears!
All right.
Have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.